In front of me we have this folding electric bike, which is an Engwe Engine Pro 2.0. I have previously ridden and test rode the Engwe Engine Pro 1.0, and with it being a very popular model from Engwe, they decided it was time to make some upgrades to the Engwe Engine Pro. So that's why we have the 2.0 in front of me, and today we're going to be taking a look at the differences between the two bikes and also going through all the specs and the features of these bikes. But before we get into any of that, let's go back to unboxing this bike and setting this bike up. As usual, Engwe had packaged this bike incredibly well to avoid any damage during delivery. And once I got all the packaging off the bike, I opened up the boxes that were included in the box. In the first box we'll find the riser pole for the handlebars. And opening up the second box, it was full of goodies like a cable tie, a bag of spares for repairs, a spanner with 2 different sizes on the end, the pedals for the bike, the front wheel axle, a bag with some more spanners, screwdrivers and other tools to build the bike, and also inside the box was another little box which contains the charger for the bike. This is a 2.5 amp charger, which means it will charge the battery quite slowly and it will take around 5.5 hours to get a full charge out of the battery. And now we had the bike completely unpacked and unwrapped, we could see all of the components and parts that we needed to build the bike. I started to remove this shim, which is put onto the steer tube of the forks purely for delivery. Once I had that removed, I could then slot the handlebars onto the steer tube of the forks, and then reinstall the same top cap that we just removed. Make sure that this is at the correct tension. If it is over tight, it will be hard to steer, and if it is not tight enough, it will be too loose. Now we can start by undoing the 2 bolts on the stem for the handlebars. You can simply lift up the handlebars into place and reinstall the top of the stem. With the handlebars on the bike, we could start taking a look at fitting the front mudguard. To install the front mudguard, you need to undo this bolt at the top of the forks, which has a nut on the back of it, and undo the 2 Allen key bolts on the rear of the forks. Then it's just a case of repeating the process but backwards. The headlight is also installed with the front mudguard. The next stage was to fit the seat onto the bike, so we could undo the quick release clamp, take the seat and put the plastic shim around the seat, and simply slide the seat into the bike. Once you have the seat at the correct height, you can tighten up the quick release clamp and clamp the seat up. And then just like that, the front wheel was also on the bike. Next up, we have to fit the pedals to the bike, and we need to match up the 2 letters on the crank arm and on the pedal, and then screw in the pedal to the correct arm, remembering to tighten them up with the spanner provided. Now we can repeat the process for the left hand side, but this has got an opposite thread. With more parts on and the bike looking like a bike, we could now fit this cargo cage to the back of the bike. The cargo cage is installed with 4 Allen key bolts, 2 on either side. And with the cage installed, we can now start installing the rear mudguard too. The rear mudguard is held on by 1 Allen key bolt at the front. At the back, the tail light is also installed with the rear mudguard, so we need to slot this through the rear mudguard and then also slot this through the cargo cage. This is held on with 2 10mm nuts. With all the parts now on the bike, I tightened up the display to make sure that it stayed in place by the 2 Allen key bolts at the back of the display. And the final job is to cut the zip tie which is holding on the keys of the bike, being careful not to cut any other cables. So now we've got the bike out of the box and it's all set up ready to ride. I am loving the looks of this bike, especially in the black colourway. Looks identical to the Engine Pro 1.0, with many of the features staying the same on this bike. Of course, with it being a 2.0, there are some changes, but for a start, let's take a look at some of the things that have stayed the same on the Engwe Engine Pro 2.0. So we're going to start up at the handlebars, and it looks like we have a very similar style of grip, although it has changed material. The old grips on the 1.0 were leather. These grips are rubber, so they have actually a better gripping material. They are locking grips, so you can do them up with Allen keys to stop them twisting. This bike also features a thumb throttle, still exactly the same as the Engine Pro 1.0, but there are some things about this thumb throttle that we will discuss later on in the video. We have the thumb controls up on the handlebars for the settings on the bike. These are slightly different to the 1.0, but they seem to do the exact same thing. We also have a very similar looking display, although the display is different as well. To help you out while riding, on the right hand side of the handlebars we have the Shimano 8-speed gear system, similar to the 1.0 as well. Of course, we do have a set of brakes on the bike as well. These seem to be unbranded brakes from what I can see looking at them, but I was really impressed with the brakes on the Engine Pro 1.0, so it'll be interesting to see how these brakes compare to the Engine Pro 1.0, see if they perform the same. So moving down to the front, we still have the headlight and the reflector provided on the bike. Again, the headlight on the Engine Pro 1.0 was plenty enough for what you needed a headlight to be on this sort of bike. We do still have the metal mudguards front and back on the Engine Pro 2.0. The Engine Pro 2.0 still comes with suspension forks. Although the travel is minimal, there is an adjustment for preload on the forks, as well as the option to lock the forks off so they don't move at all. The Engine Pro 2.0 still features these 20-inch fat tyres as well. I love the looks of these tyres for a start. They always make bikes look way more aggressive and mean when they got big chunky tyres, but they're also going to assist with the off-road riding of these bikes and taking some of the impact as well as the suspension with a bit of sponginess in the tyres. Moving to the middle of the bike, we do have a similar seat to the 1.0 model, and it is on a quick release adjustment as well, so whether you're short or you want the seat as high as it will possibly go, you do have these options with the seat on the quick release. The battery on this bike is integrated into the frame of this bike. Because it is a folding bike, that gives us access to the middle of the frame, which is where you slot the battery in and out. As for the folding mechanisms, you have one on the handlebars, you have a folding mechanism halfway down the bike, as well as the pedals folding as well, which we will also take a look at in this video. Both versions of the Engine Pro do feature rear suspension as well. It looks like a very similar shock on the 2.0 compared to the 1.0. Moving to the back of the bike into the rear wheel area, and we do have the Shimano gear speed system on the bike like mentioned. Both Engwe Engine Pro models feature a hub motor in the rear of the bike, the 2.0 having a higher rated motor. The Engwe Engine Pro 1.0 was rated at 750 watts with a peak of about 1000. This motor I think is actually rated at 1000 watts but has a peak of around 1200, so 1.2 kilowatts is not too bad on a bike like this. Like I mentioned, we do have the other metal mudguard as well, and this basket rail. I did actually debate not installing the basket rail this time round, but it turns out you have to install the basket rail to install the rear mudguard and the rear tail light, so I was sort of stumped with options. We're going to have to go with the rear basket rail for now, but it is what it is. We do have the tail light at the rear of the bike, which is really bright when it does actually darken down, and it should work with the brake levers, so we should have brake lights as well. To use the folding mechanism on the Engwe Engine Pro 1.0 and 2.0, there is one mechanism on the handlebars and there's another mechanism down halfway down the frame, as well as the pedals, which also fold up as well. The way this bike folds up is you can start in the middle by undoing the latch and folding the bike in half. It does have a little stand on the bottom of the bike which you can use to lean the bike up whilst you undo the other parts of the bike. Folding the handlebars is just as easy. You simply undo the clip and fold the handlebars down as well. And to fold up the pedals, you simply push in and fold the pedals, as easy as that. So now we've spoke about the things that are the same between the Engine Pro 1.0 and the Engine Pro 2.0. We're going to get out on the bike, we're going to give it a ride, and we're also going to talk about the upgraded things on the Engine Pro 2.0, what Engwe has decided to change compared to the Engine Pro 1.0, and what different features and things we're going to see. Most of the newer specs and the newer things we're actually going to see on the Engine Pro 2.0 are all to do with the electronics of the bike, the power of the bike. We have an upgraded battery, so a lot of the mechanics of the bike has stayed the same, the design of the bike has stayed the same, and most of the changes are coming electronically, whether that be with the battery, controller, motor, performance, whatever. But that's what we're going to jump into and start taking a look at. And the first thing that I want to note about the Engine Pro 2.0 compared to the 1.0 is, although both bikes do feature a thumb throttle, on the Engine Pro 2.0 the thumb throttle, to be in line with the UK and the Europe regulations, is actually capped out at 3.7 mile an hour. So we can now legally use this thumb throttle as a road legal bike, but it will cap out at 3.7 miles an hour, which is not Engwe's fault. We can't blame Engwe for this. Engwe have to meet certain regulations to actually sell their bikes to customers, and obviously Engwe want to make it the best for business. They need to stay with these regulations to not get in trouble for selling bikes and essentially jeopardising their future as a business. Engwe is just trying to stay in line with these rules and regulations, and I completely respect it. So as well as the 3.7 mile an hour limit on the thumb throttle, this bike also caps out at 15 mile an hour, or 15.5 mile an hour, to stay in line with the UK and European speed limits as well for these e-bikes. But even with that being said, because of the power output of this motor and because it peaks at 1200 watts, that is far too high for the UK's laws. The UK's laws are 250 watt motor, so unfortunately even though we have these features on this bike to keep it in line with the regulations, it's still not a road legal bike here in the UK. So to demonstrate these things, I'm in power assist number 5, which is the highest pedal assist we can have. So that's the level of power that we have from the pedals as we pedal along. And again, I'm going to show you the thumb throttle going to the 3.7 mile an hour that it goes to. So we're not going to pedal at all. We're going to start completely from 0 mile an hour, going to hit that thumb throttle, and this is what 3.7 mile an hour is going to give you. My feet are on, not even on the floor. This is what 3.7 mile an hour is going to give you, and at the minute it says we're getting to 2.6 mile an hour, so it's not even getting up to the 3.7 mile an hour at this rate. This is how pointless the UK regulations and laws are. What help is this to anybody? The reason they added this 3.7 mile an hour thumb throttle rule is that it can help somebody get started on the bike who may have a disability or an injury and can't quite get pedaling for a start. And again, this is where electric comes in really handy for these people. It gets them out and gets them active on a bike that is going to assist them massively. And even if it is with a thumb throttle, they're getting out and they're seeing the outside world, and they're out doing something adventurous and fun rather than being sat inside, stuck inside, not living their life. So again, I don't blame Engwe for this. This is not something that Engwe would want to do. Again, they want to have nice bikes that can do cool things and nice speeds, and I guess we're going uphill now because we dropped to like 2.3, 2.2 mile an hour. But again, that's flat out full power on the thumb throttle. This is what 3.7 mile an hour is meant to give you, and the reason it's only staying at that speed is if we get off the bike, put the stand down, lift that back wheel and hit the thumb throttle, you'll see here, should see here, oh, 3.8 mile an hour. So we're actually breaking the law now. So if the police wanted to check this, they could say that we're actually 0.1 mile an hour over the limit. But again, the reason they do this is so if the police do check this bike, the police aren't going to get on it and ride it. They're just going to have it like this. They're going to have it by the side of the road. They're going to hit that thumb throttle and they're going to see the speed on the screen. So even with no load on it whatsoever, this bike has to be capped at that. So as soon as we get on the bike and put a bit of load, a bit of weight on the bike, and we then hit that thumb throttle, again, it's just so pointless. I can't even climb this tiny little hill that we're on with the thumb throttle. So we're going to start pedaling. We're going to use the thumb throttle to get started like the government expects us to do, and then we're going to get pedaling. And like mentioned, this should be limited to 15.5 mile an hour, or the motor should cut out at 15.5 mile an hour. So if I give it my full pedal now, you can see we're at 17 mile an hour, but I lost power from the motor at 15.5 mile an hour. So 15.5, and then it cuts, and I can reach just a little bit higher. So to note some of the other things that have then changed on the Engine Pro 2.0 compared to the 1.0, we have a bigger voltage battery. So in the Engwe Engine Pro 1.0, we were having a 48 volt battery. I actually can't remember what the amp hour was, but on the new battery, we've got a 52 volt battery, so we've gained 4 volts. And we also have an amp hour of 16 amp hours, which is gonna give us an increased range over the old battery. When you have a 48 volt battery and then a 52 volt battery, the 52 volt battery is going to have a higher capacity, means it can essentially hold more power for longer. In very untechnical terms, it will mean that even if the amp hours are the same, if we had a 48 volt 16 amp hour battery and a 52 volt 16 amp hour battery, the 52 volt battery will actually do better range and last longer, as well as provide a higher top speed because there's slightly more voltage there provided. So therefore the higher voltage battery will give us slightly more range compared to the lower voltage battery. And then in terms of other changes on this Engine Pro 2.0, we, instead of having a cadence sensor, which we used to have on the Engine Pro 1.0, we now have a torque sensor. The torque sensor is down in the pedals, so the harder we pedal, the more output we get. The softer we pedal, the less output we get. The reason this is a good thing is that when you don't have a torque sensor on a bike like this, the power is very on or off. If you pedal, it tends to give you full and a lot of power. If you stop pedaling, it cuts off. With the torque sensor, you have more control over how you apply that speed on the bike. So you can pedal comfortably at a very average sort of speed, and that will give you the same results out of the bike. If you then start putting in more leg power like I'm going to do now, we'll see the speed increase. We even got to near 20 mile an hour there. See, there's no motor input now, but I'm still getting 21. Woo! That's a workout. So with this being a higher output motor, we do have an increase in torque as well. I believe we had 55 Newton meters of torque on the Engine Pro 1.0, and on the Engine Pro 2.0 we now have 75 Newton meters of torque. So roughly a 20 Newton meter increase in torque, when pedaling and applying pressure. So that has now covered pretty much all of the changes between the Engine Pro 1.0 and the Engine Pro 2.0. There isn't actually that many changes to the bike. Again, it was more power options and electrical changes that needed to be made rather than actual mechanical changes. So the bike as a whole, the way it rides and the way it looks, the way it feels, everything is very, very similar to the 1.0, apart from the fact that we do now have a prolonged battery life with that higher voltage and more capacity battery, and obviously the differences in the torque of the motor, the power of the motor, and then the torque sensor as well. So now we've got most of that out of the way, I'm going to be taking a look at the performance of the bike, how it handles and how it rides in the setup that we have it right now. I did start on a full battery and it looks like we've actually dropped 1 bar of battery. According to the screen, we've done 3.4 miles in that 1 bar of battery, but again, maybe that 1 bar of battery drops just at the 99% mark, so we should have plenty of range still left on this bike. And then in terms of controls on the handlebars, we have a plus and a minus button. These are going to be to go through the pedal assist modes 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. We have an information button which will help us go through the trip odometer, the maximum and average speeds here at the bottom, and then we do have a button here on the side which is for the headlight. So I don't know if you can see, but if I press that, we've got the headlight on at the front. Pressing the headlight button also dims the display screen too, so you should be able to see that getting dimmer and getting lighter. We do have an electrical horn on the left hand side of the bike as well, which sounds hilarious. Says it all really. So we're going to start now in pedal assist level 1, and we're going to slowly jump up through the pedal assist and see which each one does. So gear 1 should be easy to pedal. Power assist level mode 1, we'll get into 7.6 mile an hour, nearly 8 mile an hour. Oh, there we go, 8 mile an hour. Let's bump that up into level 2, see what level 2 is capable of. I'm going to flick it up into gear 2 as well now on the actual gears to give me a bit more leg help. So we're getting up to about 10 mile an hour. Again, I'm putting a bit more effort into the pedals with that torque sensor, propelling us a bit further. I'm going to go up a few gears into now gear 4, and we're going to bump it up into pedal assist level 3. Slightly uphill on this, so it will struggle a bit more than normal, which you can see here. I'm actually staying at like 9 mile an hour in level 3. I'm going to bump it down the gears on the pedals again. Let's put it into power mode level 4. Starting to pick up a bit now. 13 mile an hour it looked like it stopped at. Yeah, we're getting a motor cut out at about 13 mile an hour, and then it's just pure pedals from there. And then if we bump it up into level 5, all the way into gear 8, so it's easier for me to pedal, 15.5 mile an hour, and we cut out. But once again, having the torque sensor for the pedals and having that assist with us down there is so much more helpful than the old sensor they used to use, which was very on-off, a little bit uncontrollable at times. When that was the only thing available to me, I thought it was great and didn't really see the problems, but now I've tried torque sensors, this is definitely the way forward. So now we're going to get to the interesting bit of the video, and this is where we take a look at these rules and regulations applied to this bike, and we're going to start trying to change some of them. So Engwe from factory has to follow these rules and regulations, like I've already mentioned so much in the video, but there's normally ways around these things as well, especially with it being an electrically controlled thing. We can have some sort of input and say on it. I asked Engwe why the thumb throttle was limited to 3.5 mile an hour or 4 mile an hour, and again they told me it was regulation, it had to be like that, and it cannot be unlocked. I like to think of myself a bit of a speed demon, and I know that this bike has got a lot more in it than what we're being let on by the electrics on the bike and the regulations that have been put on the bike. So going over to the display, I'm going to put it down into power assist level 1. I don't know if this makes a difference or not, but I'm going to put it there. Now I'm going to press the plus and the minus button until we get a display like this come up. Now I'm told if we press and hold the plus button for 15 seconds, we should see the display change, and it should say something along the lines of 100 kilometers an hour. So I'm going to press and hold the plus button now for roughly 15 seconds. So I've started pressing it, and we're going to see what happens on the screen after roughly 15 seconds. Nothing so far. Still nothing. There we go, 100 kilometers an hour. It looks like it says 10, but it's got a 10 and then a smaller 0. Now we're going to press and hold the information button on the side of the display here, and that should save our settings. So now we go back to the main screen, and if I'm correct, we should be able to put it in power assist level 1, hit that thumb throttle. Yeah, now we're talking. So we've got 29 mile an hour alone with the thumb throttle now. Hopefully that should have got rid of the speed limit on the pedal assist as well. So let's hop on the bike and take a look at how it's performing now. So woohoo, already that thumb throttle feels loads better. Right, pedaling only, so we still cap out at 10 mile an hour, 11 mile an hour. pedal assist 1. Let's just go straight to 5. We're going for the top speed all the way. 20 mile an hour. We're getting up to 25, 26. I'm expecting at least 30. I think we're still cutting out at, oh no, it's carrying on. It feels like the motor's sort of cutting out at 27 to me. Yeah, we're definitely having motor cut out around 27 mile an hour, but that is a massive improvement to how the bike just was. So now we're just going to use the thumb throttle alone, no pedaling whatsoever, highest power mode, pedal assist level 5, pure thumb throttle. That is so much better. We're getting to 15, getting up to nearly 20, 19 mile an hour, 20 mile an hour, 21, 22. Getting up to 23, we are going uphill, slightly uphill, but that is so much better than having that speed limit, 3.7 mile an hour on the thumb throttle. This is why you have an electric bike. The reason I'm putting this in the video is because this bike isn't technically road legal anyway, so even if I had all these regulations and had all these limits set on the bike, technically if I go on the road, on a public road with this bike, it is not legal. So now with undoing these restrictions, I'm on private land anyway, I have permission to be here, I ride here quite a lot. So now having the option to actually ride this bike at a decent power and a decent speed with just the thumb throttle, and having that extra mile an hour with pedaling as well, because we've gained 10 if not 15 mile an hour with the pedals, it has made for such a better bike. I understand Engwe have to put these regulations on, but if you are going to get an Engine Pro, especially an Engine Pro 2.0, and it comes regulated like this, unless you are going to try and use it as a legal bike, you've got to do this hack. This is the way forwards. So now we have unlocked the full potential, or much better of the potential, of the Engwe Engine Pro 2.0. Again, so we can use it suitably in the places that I would be riding it. We can start taking a look at the other features on the bike which are cool on this bike. So, example, the brakes are part. So for me, the brakes are one of the best features on this bike. I think that stopping is way better than going fast sometimes, and obviously as important as going fast. And the brakes on this bike are more than adequate for what they need to be. We're doing 23 mile an hour now. I'll do a brake test. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they do their job. So it's safe to say the brakes are decent on this bike. They're brand new brakes. this is my first ride on the bike. They're barely bedded in, so for that performance to be that good straight away is always a positive sign. Once the rotors and the pads bed in a bit and actually wear down a bit, they'll be even better. Hey up. Should have got an Engwe, mate. It's much better. And then of course we also have the double suspension feature on this bike, with the preload settings on the left of the forks and the lock settings on the right of the forks. So when you're riding smoother terrain like this, you do have that option to lock in those forks, get rid of that spongy feeling at the front, or you can add more preload to the forks by adjusting that left hand side so they feel just a bit stiffer and a bit nicer, rather than being locked out and completely unfunctional. In terms of range, this bike claims to have 110 kilometers of range on a single charge, but that will be at pedal assist power mode 1, which is the lowest. Obviously the more power you use up in level mode 5 or anywhere in between is going to drop that range more than slightly. If you're flat out on the bike all the time, it's definitely going to drop that range. It's just the way electric works. The faster and the hotter the components get on electric, the less range you have, which is what happens when you ride fast. If you're riding averagely, I'd say you could probably expect to get at least 95 kilometers out of this bike in, say, power mode level 3. So we're going to do a throttle only hill climb test. There's a very weak hill climb ahead of us. We're on a little bit of a incline coming up here, and then it does steepen out towards the end, so we'll get a bit of speed on the flatter ground, thumb throttle only, and hopefully do this hill climb. Getting up to 14 mile an hour. We're in the highest power mode, obviously. We've gone down to 2 bars battery now because we've been using that thumb throttle. We're losing speed, 17 mile an hour. It's still going though. Suspension's coming in handy at this point. We're losing power, but it's still going. It's still doing it. 10 mile an hour, 9 mile an hour. It's struggling. We're on 1 bar of battery. It has sucked all the power. It's sucked the life out of this bike. But it's done it. We're gaining speed again. I'd say that is the weak hill climb. Completed it, mate. To sum up this video on the Engwe Engine Pro 2.0, I think all round it is a really fun and great bike. The performance of the bike definitely meets the price point. The price of this bike is £1,349, so I'll let you decide whether this bike is worth that price point compared to what you get on the market for other bikes. If you want to take a look at the Engwe Engine Pro 2.0, there will be a link to the bike down below in the description of this video, as well as a discount code or a referral link to purchase the bike if you wish to do so, which should save you some money and support the channel. If you have liked watching this video, make sure you're hitting that like button down below. If you are new around here, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button to see more content like this in the future. I've been MATTFRANCIS signing out. Peace.